It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, January 30th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content. I was really wondering how the Flyers are going to dig themselves out of a losing streak here.
Food for thought.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your best bet of $5 or more wins. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. You can find us over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy start of not spring break, I guess it is right
Yep.
now.
Yeah, it's a weird
um,
time.
Very weird time. We are going to get to Phantoms Tuesday today, a very important week and lots of good discussions to come on that front. But first, the Flyers are now on a 5-game losing streak. And we said that was the exact opposite of what needed to happen going into this break. We knew that, the Flyers have been tired. They've been a little banged up. Not that every other team isn't banged up to some degree too, but we could see it in the play of certain individuals, Sean Couturier a little bit, Travis Konechny definitely,
Oh yeah.
a couple other guys. And so I think, it's good to just take a breath right now as like it's all quiet on the Flyers news front right now and just say, should we be worried or is this, part of the course for this season?
Well, I mean, if you're worried, then that means you think they were a playoff team and you probably shouldn't have thought that. I mean, that's just the easiest way I could say that. Um, there's not a lot of worry here, but there's some things now that you want to see take place that should take place. And we don't know because again, John Torella holds the cards in some of these things. But as an example, with the time off, uh, create some new lines. Visualize, if nothing else, the power play, revisualize it, and come out with a different strategy for it. There's things like that are costing them games and points that are potentially fixable. Uh, the goaltending thing may not be fixable. And that's not to say, Sam Urson isn't going to win some games. He is, but he's probably not going to win as many without Carter Hart because of, like we talked about, not having that guy behind him that he has nothing to worry about, or knowing that if he has an off day, he's got Carter Hart to kind of bail him out. There's really nothing to bail him out now. So that's
Well, but to
something.
your point, as far as revisualizing some things, I think this gives them an opportunity to say, okay, let's look how Cal Peterson plays and let's rethink some of our defensive structure a little bit to account for that. And
That's
and
good.
maybe make some of those adjustments there to account for the goaltending and to make sure that the players know how to play in front of both Samerson and Cal Peterson in the most effective way. And that could be very different.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, or make sure you start Felix Sandstrom the next 3 or 4 in a row in Lehigh and see if he plays any better. Because if he does, then maybe try and call him up because he's probably still better than Cal Peterson. That's just in my estimation. Either way, good thoughts on that. They need some young, fresh legs. No matter how you look at it, the culture thing is only going to take you so far with some of the guys on the roster. Now, Mark Stahl has been sitting a lot, so that's fine, and he's going to have to continue. I mean, there's no way around that. But
Right.
I don't know if Hathaway needs to play every game. Uh, that whole fourth line, other than Paling, could be totally reimagined.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I was going to bring this up in the Phantoms Tuesday section of the show, but I think this lends itself more naturally in terms of Ali Lixel. And, does he stick this time? Because he is fresh legs to some degree. He
Hmm.
does offer a new set of skills to bring to the team, and he's not a fourth liner, that's for sure. But and with Bobby Brink down, like there's a complexity to that, and we'll get into more of that
Yeah.
later in the show. But I do think that Lixel brings some energy, and he is willing to try new things. We've seen it already. They've increased his minutes and he's taken some chances and had some really cool scoring opportunities so far. And maybe he sticks this time in order to provide some of that.
Yeah, even, I'd be willing to still even put him on the fourth line if that's the only way he's going to play. And maybe, John can get him 9 minutes a game, 10 minutes a game. It still might be okay for him because he still could help the team. I mean, look, Nick Delorier's got 3 points. He's a minus
Right.
9. At this point, he's probably better being a coach than a player. There's no point playing
Right.
him anymore. Like, it's just, there isn't. If you want to keep Hathaway out there for fights, okay, knock yourself out. But some of these spots, if you put some younger players in there, some of your younger players, you might find that there's some things that could happen that are good. I mean, again, even if we look at Hathaway, he's got 6 points, but he's a minus 14. Like, he's really not adding a lot to the lineup, to winning.
He's
They've gone
taken some
through,
bad penalties.
taken a bunch of bad penalties. And so it's like, at this point, who is he teaching? There's not that many young players on the roster. There's some. So, like, who is he actually influencing at this point? Like, I remember that argument, but now I'm kind of wondering, like, how many guys is he really influencing?
Right. And it goes back to that discussion of redundancy, right? When you have, like, you don't need three guys on your team that are physical and will get into a fight if you need it. You need guys that play physical, but, Travis Konechny plays physical, Scott
Mhm.
Lawton plays physical, and they bring additional stuff that maybe those guys like Hathaway and Delorier don't bring as much to their games. And I think that, that's where the difference is. You don't need three of the same kind of guy out there at
No,
once.
no. I mean, they
And Nick
really should.
Sealer. Sorry,
Right.
should have brought him up too.
Yeah. I mean, they really should reimagine the fourth line as more of a scoring line now. Like, move into the future. Send Delorier down to Lehigh. And if anybody wants him, they'll get him. That's fine. If they don't, then that tells
Yep.
you did the right thing. If you want to keep Hathaway around, that's fine, but he doesn't need to play every game. And that's where you could start rotating in and out guys. And I'm sure when we get to the Phantom segment, we could talk about some players that are deserving of chances. And some of that needs to go on now. I understand that you're in playoff position, but I think we could all read the writing on the wall for the goaltending unless they all of a sudden trade for a goalie, which I don't foresee. But
No.
anything's possible, but I don't foresee that. So I think you have to start looking at it like the beginning of the year again. Like, okay, this was good. There's still some things. There's nothing wrong with winning if you could do it. But now let's get more of these other guys involved because only, 32 games left in the season and there's a lot of future ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really looking at that defensive structure is important, not just for the
Yes.
goaltending side of things. I mean, yes, you do have to tailor it to different style of goaltending than you have been, but also I think that balance of being aggressive on the forecheck and playing a well-structured defense is something we talked about earlier in the season that they were doing very well. I don't think they've been doing that quite as well recently, and I think that's
No.
allowed other teams to, get opportunities on the rush. It's allowed teams, we just talked about Boston scoring a ton of goals net front, and that's because they were getting multiple chances. Like, how are we clearing the puck? How are we setting up an effective breakout, which I think looked a little better earlier in the season. Now, as teams get more tape on you, they're going to learn how to combat that. So I understand there's like a give and take with all that. But yeah, let's take this break and figure some stuff out here in terms of getting back to that more disciplined defense with an effective breakout.
Right. So now looking at that defense, the top four could be reimagined. You could go back to Sanheim, York. Um, you could put Drysdale on the second, which he's much better to be on. You could break up Sealer and Walker, which I think at this point should be, because when you face better teams, they can't hold
Yeah,
their own. They can't.
right.
So why not have a second pairing that gives you hope for the future, and top pairing, a top four that you say, okay, this is one that may not look as pretty today as when it looked for these guys early in the year, but they can work towards a goal. Like, they can get better, and maybe by the end of the year, I actually know what my top four is going into next year. This
Yeah.
way, you're not going to know. You're just playing Sealer Walker, and you're going to trade one of them. You're going to keep one of them, and then you're not going to know for next year.
Right, and you're not gonna know for the rest of this year who to pair him with. Like, you can't use that time as your experiment. Why
Right.
not do it now? I think that's an absolutely fair point, and all of this is doable. I think that's the
Yeah.
important point, is that for the Flyers, where they are now in the rebuild and this season, all of this is doable. Let's hope they take some time on the coaching side during this break to think about all these things and get back to our winning ways, after the All-Star break. In the meantime, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms have played another couple of games. Lots to talk about them and Bobby Brink. We'll get to that coming up next.
Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. I got to tell you, I really think the over is the way to go for this one. I think San Fran's offense is peaking. I think Mahomes is almost unstoppable, and I think it's going to be a shootout and come down to the last possession. That's what I think for this Super Bowl. We'll see. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or two or three. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets of your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's fanduel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is brought to you by Factor. It's not too late to get started on resolutions with Factor, so you're ready for this year. Factor's 2-minute meals are your secret weapon. Factor's ready to eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success this year. You can skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef crafted, dietitian approved meals delivered right to your door. They've got over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons. You'll have a ton of nutritious and delicious options to kickstart your resolutions. They offer loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep me going no matter what's on my schedule. And Factor is flexible. You can change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or you can pause or reschedule anytime. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and more delicious than takeout. So head to factormeals.com/lockedonnhl50 and use that code lockedonnhl50 to get 50% off. That's code lockedonnhl50 at factormeals.com/lockedonnhl50. On tomorrow's show, we'll be having a massive mailbag. So get those questions in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail. You can send us a message on Twitter or comment over on our YouTube channel. Russ, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. First off, kind of flew
Oi.
under the radar.
Oi.
Well, I just want to say, first off, it flew under the radar. Jordy Bellerive was traded to the San Jose Barracuda for future considerations. Good luck to
Mhm.
him. Not sure what those considerations will be, but it was clear that there's been a log jam, so it was good for
There's been
Jordy
too
to
many
get.
forwards, yeah.
Yeah, so it was good for him to get a spot somewhere else for an AHL level player there. Um, Two losses this week, one to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, one to the Marlies, both that involved comeback attempts that did not come to fruition. The Marlies game, it was a shootout loss, but I would say that game against Wilkes-Barre Scranton was more heartbreaking because they came back from 3 goals down to tie it and then wound up losing in regulation. Like Wilkes-Barre Scranton scored, I think it was like a minute and a half or so left in the
Yeah.
game. Just brutal. And I feel like these 2 games were both were uplifting and then demoralizing in the worst way possible.
Yeah, especially the Wilkes-Barre game. That that one, you could say it was on national TV because a lot of people had it on
It
their
was on NHL Network. Yep.
yeah. So it just showed off some of the things that are going on with them and just how they looked asleep early in the first period. The thing that got me the most though was I always look at games and say, who are the guys that you want out there that you're double shifting, that you're doing to try and either win or keep a game the way it is? And I don't know, with 3 minutes to go, J.R. Avon was out there, and I was like, why? He's on a third line for you. Um, why is that? It didn't make sense. You usually want some more veterans out there or some rock solid defenders and maybe a great offensive player in case they can, break it and you could get the win that way. But in no way, shape, or form were they even have the right personnel to lock that one down to try and get the tie and go to overtime.
Yeah, it was just like it was upsetting just because they had gotten the tie. That's the thing,
Yes.
is they had gotten the tie and it just like slipped out from between their fingers. And I think that uh, your point about Avon, it's interesting because in that game he was up on the second line
Hmm.
initially. He wound up getting like moved down, or they restructured a little bit, I think mostly because Wade Allison came back, but Avon was
Right.
then moved down to the third line. But he has, for the most part, looked really good. And he is fast, and the
Hmm.
kinds of creativity he has been great. Um, but your point stands because it was this crucial situation where he just doesn't have the experience to
No, you're
do
playing
that.
against a veteran team that you have
Right.
trouble against.
Right, but, you look at what, Lappy said about it, after the game, or it was, like, the pregame interview for the next day's game, and he's like, "This is a learning league, this is a teaching league, and you have to put these guys out there in these sorts of situations so that they learn." And J.R. Avon is definitely learning from this mistake. And so I think I get it to some degree, but also, like, you need to get some points here, bud.
Right.
Like,
This is my
and
problem.
maybe
Like, there
maybe
probably
that
have
needs to take priority here.
right. The learning is fine. Um, some of that stuff at the end of the game is fine when you have a certain amount of points in the bank. Like, you're still, yes, you are a developing league, but you also want these guys to go through a playoff run like last year. And you're nowhere near it now. So hoping that he could do it now, and then when he fails, and you say, "Well, that was a good learning experience," but you're deeper in the hole. Like, all he's learning is that yes, I could do better on that, but you're learning as a team that you're falling out of the playoffs. So I think that's a problem more than a help. I understand the help part, but it's more of a problem for me.
Right, I think in this particular situation, I think in many situations, I would say put him out there. In this situation, I don't think that that
Especially
was
against that
the
team.
best
If
time.
you want to say it's a team
Yeah,
you don't face normally, okay. But this is a team you have trouble with.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Against the Marlies, they were down 2 goals, and, they come back, and then, nothing happens in overtime, and then they lose in the shootout. But they shouldn't have to come back like this. Like, they should not have these lulls like they're having. And I think that has been a problem with this team, is like comebacks are fun every now and again, but you don't want to make a habit of it, right?
No, no, you don't.
I think, the most important thing to talk about from an individual perspective here is Bobby Brink,
Hmm.
because we all know that he was sent down to the Phantoms under, I would say, there were clear, instructions from John Tortorella, say, here's what he needs to work on. Like that was very clear in terms of, he
Mhm.
wanted to improve his checking, he wanted to improve his play away from the puck, in terms of his thought process going into things, and we wanted to get more ice time and more confidence to work on these things. I don't think confidence is a problem for Bobby Brink.
No,
uh,
it's
you
not.
know, it's not, but I can understand some of the other stuff. But I think he's taken this in stride so far, with a goal on Friday and 2 goals on Saturday. And it is an interesting question whether or not this stint, however long it may be, will do him good.
Yeah, I mean, he's played like 90 pro games, right? And like we had said, he's going to be 23. At this point, the AHL is not going to do him much good. It's not, because he's just a notch above. Right now, he's a quadruple A guy. You could see it.
Yeah.
But he could possibly be more than that. But you only got to find that out if you have him in the NHL lineup. And I think that's the issue. And he could have played more NHL games, but he sat some. So now he's at 38 games, with 18 points, and he's a +7. Honestly, in a vacuum, they're not bad numbers. I'm not sure what the extra, you know, concern is here other than, yes, okay, you want him checking better. Well, you could tell him that every game and eventually he's going to get it. Sending him down was just, it was a bit much for me. And he should be the first guy called up now, but that doesn't mean you should have Lixell go down either.
Right. That's the complexity, right,
I
that
don't
we were
want the
talking
same
about before.
carousel of guys happening anymore. Like, I think they should be past that.
Yeah, and that's where, like, this logjam is a problem, and I also just worry about Samu Tuamala and his development as, like, an after effect of what's going on with the other guys, because he's kinda getting tossed around with, different line mates, different, opportunities, different
Yeah.
placement. Like, it's not good for him either, I think, in his development this year. Now, does it add to resiliency and flexibility and give you, some of that? Sure. I absolutely understand that. But I do think, like, they have to step back a little bit and think more holistically about this plan, 'cause it doesn't seem like there is one. Or if there is a plan, maybe there is a plan and we just don't know. Tell us. Tell us, please. Like,
Right.
what's happening?
Right. No, I agree. I think, like with Tuamala, you don't expect him to play in the NHL for the next couple of years. So I think the path he's on is fine. Brink, you need to find out, because if Brink starts out next year in the AHL, then he's probably not in your future plans. I mean, that's the cold, harsh reality. So I think this is the season to find that out. If you lose
Yeah.
some what you call playoff points, so be it. But do you really think you have the goaltending to get you to the playoffs now? I think that's going to be reassessed too. So, and that's not Bobby Brink's fault. Like, it's like he shouldn't be looked at like, hey, when he comes up, he's going to really, he should be like our third, fourth best scorer. No, he probably shouldn't. So those are things that I think could affect both, Lehigh and the Flyers, and it doesn't seem like they're working in concert. It doesn't.
No, there's more to talk about, on this front. I wanna talk a little bit about the line Bobby Brink was on. I wanna talk about the power play for the Phantoms, which was actually quite good, in these couple of games, so good stuff there. We will do that coming up next.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. You can go to Locked On Sports Today over on YouTube and subscribe. Russ, the line that Bobby Brink was on was with Rhett Gardner and Samu Tuamala. And the thing about that line in these couple of games is the chemistry that Brink and Tuamala wound up having was very good. Gardner was
Mhm.
like a good like backstop center for that line,
Right.
which worked out well. Like, what he was doing really supported Brink and Tuamala, I think. But it just gave me like a very happy glimpse into the potential future of the Flyers, and I really liked what I saw.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say that. I thought it looked good too. I thought, Gardner, I got why they put him there, and that was fine
Yeah.
with me because the other two are the scorers, so that's good. And yeah, it all seemed to work. Brink had his smile going, and his confidence was going. So all those things were positive. Tuamala, I felt like got a little frustrated because he wants to help bring the team back in some of these games, and it's tough. I mean, he's a rookie in this league, so his time will come to be able to start doing that, but it's probably not there yet.
Yeah, exactly. The power play was quite good for the Phantoms, and that was actually a big part of the comeback attempts, and that's the upside to the comebacks, right?
Yeah.
Where the power play was clicking 2 for 3 on Friday. They were 2 for 4 on Saturday, and in fact, they scored 2 power play goals on the same power play because they had a 5 on 3 and then a 5 on 4, and they scored on both. And it was really refreshing, honestly, and, Bobby
Yeah, I
Brink got
haven't
one of
seen
his
that from the big club, so that's nice to
Right.
see from some club.
Right, exactly, and so that was really good to see. Bobby Brink got his 2nd goal was the 5 on 3 goal
Right.
in that game on Saturday, but, he got the job done, and I think
Yeah, that's what you want.
that's it is what you want, and it's really important, and so, I really like that, especially because the power play for the Phantoms had started out so strong this season, and had been slipping a little bit, and so it was good to see them have, like, a real dominant, couple of games on special teams,
Yeah,
for
it
that.
was nice to see that. One of my other questions is why is Victor Mete on the second pairing? He's not a good defensive defenseman. Yes, he's okay moving the puck and he can get you some points. Clearly, he's not what he was supposed to be when he came out of London because, 9 points in 30 games. Like, okay, but he's a minus also. And I just look at
Yeah.
that and I'm like, why? Why is he
Well,
getting those minutes
yeah.
when, you could have Yinning and Adder up on the second pairing? Now, maybe that moves Samson down, but I think it'd be okay to move Samson down because Adder and Yinning, if I were the coach, I'd want that to be my third pairing next year if they both hit it right because they're both really good. But again, Sealer might have something to say about that. But just in theory, it'd be nice if you brought up a pairing that had cohesiveness right out of the gate. That's something that some teams have done before.
Right, and I see them doing that because Emile Andre and Helge Grans are their top pairing, and
Right.
in the pecking order, that makes sense, right? That's your
Hmm.
top pairing, and, you know, in a weird logic sort of way, you can't put Mete lower than the second pairing because he's the quote unquote more NHL ready of anybody on the blue
But I'll
line.
use Lappy's line,
That's
but it's a
debatable.
development line. It's a development league. He's not developing anymore.
Right, but I think he feels like Samson needs a Mete with him, and so that's, like, where it ends up,
Right. So
and
you could have him with him on the third pairing. And I think your
right,
second pairing would actually be better.
sure, I agree. I'm just like, this is me talking from Lappy and the coaching
Yeah.
standpoint about what
Yes.
their logic is, and which I get it, but I don't think it's good for Jennings and Adder in the long run. I think that they should be part of the future of the Flyers blue line and should be getting, like,
As
more
many
minutes,
minutes as they can. Yeah. They're not gonna
but
get.
and Adder gets those power play
He
minutes,
does.
so, we should be clear
But
about that,
Yanning's a
and he's
defensive defenseman. Like how many of those
yeah,
do the Flyers actually have?
well, That is a very good
One, they
question.
turned Risto into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But, yeah, it's real interesting in Lehigh Valley. Choices are being made, and I think, like we said last week, we talked about it very extensively, that we're at sort of a breaking point here, and do you start thinking about Lappy's job being on the line? And I think that, there's something to that. I don't know. I don't like it's very
He
hard
might
to
get
tell.
dispersed from within the organization, and I'm not against that. I'm just saying
Yeah.
a new AHL coach might be the way to go because I do think they have to move into the future with this. And they had a, a surprising year last year, and you're not following it up with a very good year at all. This is not like, look, I'm not saying you have to make the playoffs every year. What I'm saying is you should be a playoff contender, and they're not even that.
Yeah, yeah, there's just questions to be answered and looking for more cohesiveness between the Phantoms and the Flyers. I think that's really, a part of it. In the meantime, the Phantoms have 3 games this week, but they've got a Wednesday game tomorrow with Hershey in town. Friday, again, Hershey is in town. Top team in the division. Like,
Got to win
it's
these
make or
games.
break it. Gotta win
Yeah.
these games, and then, they face, Wilkes-Barre Scranton again,
Ugh.
because now we're in the Wilkes-Barre Scranton mode for the rest of the season, it feels like, and in big, important games, they gotta
You
get
got to
these
come out with
points.
a lot of points in this, and it's going to be hard.
Yeah, so we'll check in again on them next week. We'll see what happens with Lixel after the break. We'll see what happens with Bobby Brink. Just a lot to keep an eye on with the Lehigh Valley
And if we didn't
Phantoms.
even mention Denoye, like he skated well, but
Ugh,
he's so not in the flow. It's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. So lots to dig into week to week with that team. That will do it for today's show. We will have our mailbag episode tomorrow. So send those questions in via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.